If there's one thing that I have learned from creating my content on YouTube, it's that it is important to be mindful of your surroundings, and I hope I have instilled that into some people too. On the 7th of January 2012, a man named Gary Arnold returned home after a morning stroll, but when he walked around the house, he noticed that his wife was missing. His wife was a woman named Sherry Arnold, and Sherry absolutely loved the outdoors and would often be out walking or jogging. Gary simply assumed that Sherry had gone out for a jog, which she had. Although, as more and more time began to pass, Gary became worried for his wife's well-being when she failed to return home in the usual time frame. He decided that he would go out and look for her himself, but fear struck Gary when she was nowhere to be seen. Sherry was a 43-year-old woman and a popular math teacher at Sydney High School, where she had taught for the last 18 years, and she was a much-loved member of the community in Sydney, Montana. There was no real reason or motive for anyone to have hurt or killed her. As more time passed, Sherry's husband decided to get a search party together to help find his wife. The community was approximately 5,000 people, and a staggering 1,000 turned up and joined in the search for Sherry. The Sydney Police Department got involved too, with the help of around 40 soldiers from the Montana Army National Guard. At first, members of the police became suspicious and believed that the culprit would more than likely be Gary, as often in these kinds of cases, it tends to be the person who is most close to the victim. During the search, Sherry was nowhere to be seen, but what they did manage to find was one of her running shoes on her known jogging route along Holly Street, which was also known as the truck route. It became very clear that there was some kind of foul play involved. An investigation regarding Sherry's disappearance began. Not long after her disappearance on the 11th of January 2012, the police received an anonymous tip regarding a 22-year-old man named Michael Spell. Apparently, Michael had been overheard speaking to his family members about a woman that he and another man named Lester Waters had kidnapped and killed. Lester was a 47-year-old man. He had an extensive criminal background in Florida, where he had lived until his most recent release from prison in August of 2010. The list of his crimes is lengthy and involves drug dealing charges, weapon charges, hit and runs, and fraud. The list goes on. The two men had gone looking for work in the North Dakota region, as many oil and gas job opportunities had recently become available in that area. The next day, on the 12th of January, FBI special agents spoke with Michael's girlfriend, and she began to tell them that Michael and Lester had abducted a woman and killed her. She also gave information about the vehicle they were driving, a 1993 green Ford Explorer. She told them that Michael was racked with guilt and had confessed to her that he had strangled a woman and shoved her face in a puddle of mud until she was dead. And he also said to her that Lester had forced him to bury the woman's body. She told the FBI agents that Michael was terrified that if he did not comply with Lester, then Lester would kill him. He said that during the journey, Lester had forced him to smoke crack. And while they were both smoking it, Lester said that when he takes this drug, it brings the devil out of him. Later on that day, Lester was arrested and questioned after the police located his vehicle. Inside, they found a receipt dated from the 7th of January. The receipt was from a Walmart, and the items included a shovel. The following day, the FBI brought Michael in for questioning, and he quickly crumbled and confessed that he and Lester had abducted and killed Sherry. But at first, Michael lied to the FBI and told them that all he had done was drag her into the car, and that it was Lester who had begun to strangle and kill her. A different story than what he had told his girlfriend. But the next day, while Michael was incarcerated in jail, he spoke to a fellow inmate. Michael had told this inmate that Lester was the instigator in the kidnapping of Sherry, and that he merely did what Lester told him to do out of fear. Michael told the inmate the same story that he had told his girlfriend, Now, there was two people corroborating a story. The two men had noticed Sherry was jogging on the path, and they drove past her to get ahead. Michael then got out of the car and waited for her to get closer. As she jogged by, Michael said hi. This was to put her at ease so she wouldn't suspect a thing. As she jogged past and had her back turned to Michael, he rugby tackled her to the ground and began to choke her. He then pushed her face into some muddy water and drowned her. Michael told his inmate that the kidnap was fueled by drugs and that the fact that Lester wanted to have sex with a woman. The two of them then threw her clothes in a dumpster behind a truck shop. They then bought a shovel at Walmart and Michael began to dig a 3-foot hole. They then placed her body inside and buried her. After they were done, they went back to the Walmart and got a refund for the shovel. Michael said that he was scared of what Lester might do next, so he stole his mobile phone and began hitchhiking until he got to South Dakota. The police now had more than enough evidence to charge both of these men. They were held on a $2.5 million bail each. On March the 19th, 2012, Lester finally admitted to what happened and confessed to his part in the crime. He agreed to take the police to the location where they had buried her body. They managed to find Sherry's body outside Williston, North Dakota. An autopsy revealed a black and gritty but unidentified material in her stomach and trachea. In October of 2013, Michael filed for an examination on his mental state to see if he was suffering from a development disability, and if he was, it would give him a more lenient sentence on the grounds of diminished responsibility. After a long examination, mental health professionals deemed that Michael knew exactly what he was doing and was competent enough to stand trial. Many of the examiners believed that his behaviour while they tested him seemed to be acted and fake. He was attempting to fool them and exaggerate his lack of intelligence. The trial began, and before the judge handed down the sentence to Lester, he turned to Sherry's husband Gary and offered an apology. He said, "I'm sorry for your loss. I truly am." This was an apology that Gary had no interest in accepting. Lester was able to strike a deal made by the prosecutors. They called for him to testify against Michael during the trial, and in exchange, they promised that he would be spared of the death penalty, and prosecutors would recommend he received 100 years in prison with a 20-year suspended sentence. Michael was also given the opportunity to avoid the death penalty if he pleaded guilty to the crime in court. He admitted guilt and was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Lester Waters was sentenced to 100 years in prison with a 20-year suspended sentence. He will not be eligible for parole until he is age 70 under the terms of his service. Even though this case isn't particularly gruesome, it's chilling to think that even in a small safe town, these kinds of things can still happen if you just so happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sherry was just simply going about her day like she had every right to do, when these two men believed that they could do with her as they pleased, and devised a plan to end her life for absolutely no reason other than their own self-gratification. It could happen to any of us at any time. In 2012, Sydney was classed as a very safe place to live, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The local people have said that since the oil boom, crime has risen as more people have flocked there in search of job opportunities. From what I can tell online, Sherry was an incredibly valued member of the community, and many of her students came forward and spoke about their experiences with her. They said that she was more than just a teacher, she was also a mentor. She would often be at work early and finished late, so her children could come to her if they needed. The Sydney school where she taught made a statement, saying that Sherry is one of those teachers that every parent wants in front of their child, and that she is greatly missed. Hey everyone, just so you all know, I have a second channel now, focusing on disturbing historical events, ranging from war, famine, human experiments, and genocide. If you want to check out the channel, then there are 2 videos currently on there, and I'll leave a link in the description and pinned in the comments. It's a little project that me and my brother are doing together, so I narrate it and I upload and edit, and he writes everything. So hopefully I'll see you guys over there.